The Protocol of Mercy, Part 1, Yokohama, Japan, May 1995. The sound comes first, a woman crying, not the quiet tears of old age, but something deeper, something that has waited 50 years to surface. The camera finds her in a small kitchen. Afternoon light streams through rice paper windows, illuminating dust motes that hang in the air like memories. Yuki Tanaka sits at a wooden table worn smooth by decades of use. Her hands spotted with age and swollen at the knuckles tremble
so much.
as they hold a
I
diary.
know, I'm here.
The leather cover is
Don't
cracked and
leave me.
faded,
Never.
the pages yellowed to the color of old parchment. She is 74 years old. The lines on her face map a geography of suffering and survival of choices made in moments when death seemed easier than life. But right now in this kitchen that smells of green tea and incense, she is not thinking about age or time or the weight of years. She is thinking about August 15th, 1944. The day everything she had been taught revealed itself as a lie. Her fingers find a photograph tucked between the pages. A young woman stares back. 23 years old, dark eyes that have not yet seen what war can do to the human soul. A nurse's uniform, crisp and clean in a way it would never be again. And behind her, barely visible in the photograph's background, something impossible. Something that should not exist in a Japanese nurse's photograph from the middle of the Pacific War. An American flag. Yuki's voice breaks the silence. The words come in Japanese first, then in careful accented English, as if she has practiced this moment for decades. August 12th, 1944. The day I learned that my enemy had more mercy than my own people. The camera pushes closer. The diary page beneath her fingers fills the frame. Handwriting in faded ink, shaped by a hand that shook when it wrote these words. The date stands out in darker ink, underlined 3 times, as if to anchor the memory, to make it real, to prove that such a day actually existed. Cut to black. A man's voice emerges from the darkness. Deep measured, the kind of voice that has told 1,000 stories and knows the value of patience. The voice of someone who understands that the best stories are not rushed, that truth unfolds at its own pace. This is a story about bacon. A pause. Let it settle. About betrayal. Another pause. The rhythm matters. About the moment a Japanese woman discovered that everything she had been taught was a lie. The black screen holds. In that darkness, the audience leans forward. Questions form. How does bacon connect to betrayal? How does an American flag appear in a Japanese nurse's photograph? What lie could be so profound that 50 years later, an old woman cries in her kitchen? The screen erupts into blinding Texas sunlight. August 12th, 1944. Crystal City, Texas. 2:15 in the afternoon. Heat. That is what hits first. Not the temperature itself, though it pushes past 105 degrees before noon and shows no sign of stopping. Not the sun, though it beats down like God's own hammer on metal and flesh and earth. What hits first is the weight of it. The Texas heat in August does not simply warm the air. It occupies space. It presses against skin and lungs and will. It turns breath into labor. It makes the simple act of walking feel like wading through water. 15 women move in a ragged line down a dirt road that cuts through the flat Texas landscape like a scar. Their wooden sandals scrape against packed earth with each shuffling step. Dust rises in small clouds around their feet, coating their torn clothes, their skin, their hair, their throats. The dust tastes like copper and defeat. The landscape stretches endlessly in every direction. Mesquite trees twist toward a sky so blue it hurts to look at directly. In the distance, heat shimmer makes the horizon waver like water. Barbed wire fences appear and disappear in the distortion. Guard towers materialize like mirages. This is Texas. This is America. This is enemy territory. 2 American soldiers walk ahead of the women. Young men barely 20 years old with sunburned faces the color of brick and rifles slung over their shoulders. They do not point their weapons. They do not shout. One of them, the taller one with red hair that shows beneath his helmet, keeps glancing back at the group with an expression the women cannot read. Concern, pity, confusion. They do not know. They do not trust it. The women stay close together, drawing what comfort they can from proximity, from shared fear, from the knowledge that at least when the time comes, they will die together. Because the time is coming. They can feel it. Death is patient, but it is not far away now. Yuki Tanaka walks in the middle of the group. Her nurse's uniform hangs off a frame that has lost 30 pounds in the last month. The white fabric, once crisp and professional, is now torn at the sleeves and stained with substances she tries not to remember. Bruises mottle her arms in shades of purple and yellow and sick green, the colors of healing that is not really healing, just time passing over damage that goes deeper than skin. Her face bears the marks too, a cut above her left eyebrow swelling along her jaw that makes it difficult to chew a split lip that reopened this morning when she tried to drink from a canteen. These injuries did not come from Americans. Not yet. 3 days ago, Japanese military officers beat these women with rifle butts, beat them for the unforgivable crime of choosing to live, for surrendering instead of dying with honor, for failing to kill themselves when their hospital ship was torpedoed off the coast of Saipan. Death before dishonor. That was the rule. That was the expectation. That was what the emperor demanded. But Yuki had been too tired to die, too broken, too human. She had watched families throw their children off the cliffs at Saipan rather than face American capture. She had seen mothers clutch grenades to their chests and take their babies with them into oblivion. She had heard the screams, the prayers of the final moments of hundreds of people who believed with absolute certainty that death was preferable to falling into American hands. And she had chosen differently. She had let herself be captured. She had raised her hands in surrender. For that choice, her own officers beat her until she could not stand, called her a whore and a traitor, told her she would learn soon enough that the Americans were demons, that they would do things to her that would make her beg for the death she had been too coward to embrace. Now she walks under guard by 2 American soldiers who do not seem like demons at all. They walk ahead of the women, not behind. Their rifles stay slung. Their voices, when they speak to each other, sound almost gentle. But Yuki does not trust this. Cannot trust this. The propaganda has lived in her head too long. Americans are monsters. Everyone knows this. Everyone has been taught this. The kindness must be a trap. There is something wrong with her back. The pain started yesterday, a dull ache in her lower spine that she ignored because there were so many other pains demanding attention. The bruises, the cuts, the hunger that gnaws at her belly like a living thing. The thirst that makes her tongue stick to the roof of her mouth despite the water the Americans gave them an hour ago. Clean water. Cold water. Water that tasted like nothing she had ever been allowed to drink during the war. But today the pain in her back is different. Sharper. Deeper. With each step it sends little electric jolts down her legs. Her left foot is starting to drag slightly, catching on small stones she should be able to clear. She has to concentrate to make it lift, to make it move forward, to make it do what feet are supposed to do without thinking. She says nothing. Showing weakness now would be fatal. The Americans are looking for excuses, for reasons to prove that the propaganda was right, that mercy is weakness, that prisoners are burdens to be eliminated. So she walks, and the pain grows. They pass through a gate into a compound. Barbed wire fences stretch in straight lines, topped with more wire that coils like metal intestines. Guard towers stand at each corner, dark shapes of soldiers visible against the bright sky. Buildings made of wood and corrugated metal sit in orderly rows, precise as a grid. The American flag hangs from a tall pole in the center of everything, the stars and stripes snapping in a hot breeze that offers no relief from the heat. Crystal City Internment Camp. Yuki does not know the name yet, does not know that this place will change everything. The sound of construction fills the air. Hammers on wood, the growl of engines, men shouting to each other in English. The language sounds harsh and guttural to Yuki's ears, all hard consonants and strange rhythms. Everything about this place speaks of organization, of resources, of a nation so wealthy it can build entire cities in the middle of nowhere just to house its enemies. Japan is starving. Japan is burning under American bombs. Japan is losing. Yuki knows this now, though she would never have admitted it a month ago. But here in the heart of enemy territory, there is enough wood and metal and labor to build barracks that look more solid than anything she has seen in the last year of war. The realization sits in her stomach like a stone. They have already lost. They lost before it even began. They just did not know it yet. The soldiers lead them down a main road. Other prisoners are visible in the distance, Men in different sections of the camp separated by more fences. Germans maybe. Yuki thinks she can see their silhouettes. And beyond them in another fenced area more Japanese. But separated. Men and women kept apart. Even in captivity, even in defeat, some rules remain. The pain in Yuki's back intensifies. It feels like something is pressing on her spine from the inside, like a hand reaching through her flesh to squeeze the bones together. Her left leg buckles slightly. She catches herself, keeps walking, does not let the others see. But Reiko sees. Reiko always sees. Reiko Yamamoto walks beside her close enough that their shoulders brush with each step. 25 years old, a school teacher before the war, with a gentle face that does not match the hardness in her eyes now. Yuki's friend since the hospital ship, since the bombing, since the moment they both chose life over honor. Reiko leans close. Her voice drops to a whisper in Japanese. "Are you all right?" Yuki nods. The lie costs her nothing. She has been lying about being all right for weeks now. What is one more untruth stacked on top of all the others? But her body betrays her. The next step sends a bolt of white fire up her spine. Her vision whites out for a second. Her knee buckles. She catches herself on Reiko's arm, grips hard enough to leave marks. "Yuki, I am fine." "You are not fine. You need to tell them. You need help." "They will kill me if I cannot walk." "They gave us water. They gave us food. Maybe they will help." Yuki wants to believe this, wants to believe that the cold water was kindness, that the crackers one of the guards shared from his own rations meant something beyond mockery. But belief is dangerous. Hope is a trap. She has learned this the hard way. The soldiers stop at a smaller building, away from the main barracks. One of them, the red-haired one, speaks into a radio handset. His voice carries an urgency that Yuki does not understand. The words are meaningless sounds, but the tone is almost worried. "No, that cannot be right. Americans do not worry about Japanese prisoners. Americans are demons." That is what she was taught. That is what she knows. Except she does not know anything anymore. She only knows that her legs are going numb and the pain in her back is becoming unbearable and she needs to sit down, but she cannot show weakness. She cannot. She cannot. One more step, then another. The world narrows to this simple act. Left foot, right foot, do not fall, do not fail. The red-haired soldier turns to look at them. His face bears an expression that Yuki will remember for the rest of her life. Not hatred, not disgust, something softer, something almost human. He opens his mouth to speak, and Yuki's legs stop working. It happens without warning, no gradual weakening, no moment of transition. One moment she is walking, forcing her feet forward through sheer will. The next moment, there is an explosion of pain in her lower back like someone has driven a white-hot spike through her spine. Her knees buckle. Her legs fold beneath her like paper. She pitches forward onto the dirt road. Her hands barely catch her weight before her face hits the ground. Gravel cuts into her palms. The impact jars every bone in her body, but the pain in her hands is nothing compared to the agony that radiates from her spine. The scream rips out of her throat before she can stop it. A sound of pure animal agony that echoes off the metal buildings and silences every other noise in the compound. Construction stops. Conversations halt. The world freezes for a moment, suspended in the sound of one woman's suffering. Yuki tries to push herself up. Her arms work. Her upper body responds to commands. But below her waist there is nothing. No feeling, no control, just absence and pain. Pain so intense it whites out her vision and makes her scream again. The line of women stops instantly. Reiko drops to her knees beside Yuki, hands fluttering uselessly, not knowing where to touch or how to help. "Yuki, what is wrong? Can you stand?" Yuki tries. She pushes with her arms, tries to get her legs under her, but they will not respond. They lie on the ground like dead things, like they belong to someone else, like they have been cut off, and she is only just now noticing. "I cannot." The words come out in gasps between sobs. "I cannot move them. My legs. I cannot feel my legs." The other women gather around, forming a protective circle. 13 faces staring down at her with varying expressions of fear and pity and helpless rage. They have so little power, so little control. They could not help her on the ship when the officers beat her. They cannot help her now. Sachiko Watanabe, the oldest at 42, a university professor with graying hair and steady hands, stands and faces the American soldiers. She holds up her hands in a gesture that needs no translation. Please, please help. She points at Yuki on the ground, then makes a gesture like someone unable to walk. Her English is limited, but her meaning is clear. Our friend, she needs help, please. The red-haired soldier's face changes. The almost human expression becomes something more, something like alarm. He speaks rapidly into his radio, his voice urgent, insistent. The other soldier, shorter and darker with nervous eyes, moves closer but does not know what to do. He holds his rifle awkwardly, like he is just now realizing that the weapon is useless here. Minutes pass. Yuki lies on the ground, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the dust to make mud on her cheeks. The pain is constant now, a living thing that has taken up residence in her spine and refuses to leave. She tries to move her toes, nothing. Her feet, nothing. Her legs, nothing. This is it, she thinks. This is where they kill me. A prisoner who cannot walk is a burden, a waste of resources. They will shoot me here in the road and leave my body for the others to see. A warning, a lesson. She closes her eyes and waits for the gunshot. Instead, she hears an engine. The sound grows louder, closer. The whine of a motor pushed to high speed. Tires on dirt. Then the screech of brakes and the engine cutting off and the slam of doors. Yuki opens her eyes. A jeep sits 20 feet away, dust still settling around its wheels. Two men climb out, but these are not regular soldiers. Their uniforms are different, lighter colored. And on their left arms, white armbands with red crosses. Medics. American medics. The women tense. This is it. This is the moment. These men with their medical bags and their red crosses and their American faces. These are the demons from the propaganda films. These are the monsters who will do unspeakable things. Yuki prepares herself for cruelty, for mockery, for the casual violence of men who see her as less than human. The first medic is young, 24 years old, maybe 25. Dark hair cut short in the military style. Gray eyes that hold an intensity Yuki can feel even from the ground. He moves with purpose, with confidence, with the bearing of someone who knows exactly what he is doing. He carries a canvas bag over his shoulder that clinks with glass and metal. The second medic is older, maybe 45. Gray streaks in his brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses that catch the sunlight. He carries a larger bag and moves more slowly, more deliberately, with the patience of experience. They walk toward the group of women. The Japanese prisoners instinctively move back away, still protecting Yuki, but also protecting themselves, creating distance from the threat. The young medic stops a few feet away. He holds up both hands, palms out, a gesture of peace, of non-aggression. He says something in English. The words mean nothing to Yuki, but the tone is calm, steady, almost gentle. He points at Yuki, then at his medical bag, then makes a gesture of examination. I want to help. That is what his movements say. I want to look. I want to see what is wrong. The women look at each other, at Sachiko, at Reiko, at anyone who can make this decision, because Yuki certainly cannot. She can barely think through the pain. Sachiko nods slowly, steps aside. We have no choice. Let them come. The young medic kneels beside Yuki on the dusty road. He sets his bag down, carefully opens it with practiced movements. The interior is immaculately organized. Bandages rolled tight, bottles of clear liquid, instruments that gleam even in the harsh sunlight. Everything clean, everything ready. He looks at Yuki's face, makes eye contact, holds it, and then he smiles. Not a cruel smile, not a mocking smile, not the smile of someone who takes pleasure in another's suffering. A kind smile, the kind of smile you give to someone who is scared and hurt and needs to know that they are not alone. The kind of smile that says, without words, without language, without anything except simple human decency, I see you. I see your pain, and I am here to help. Yuki stares at him. This moment stretches, expands, becomes something larger than itself. This is not what she was taught. This is not the demon from the propaganda. This is a man, just a man with kind eyes and gentle hands and a smile that cracks something open in Yuki's chest that has been locked tight for months. The medic speaks again. His voice is low, reassuring. The sounds are foreign, but the melody is universal. You are going to be okay. We have got you. Let me help. He begins his examination. His hands move carefully, professionally. He checks her pulse at her wrist, his fingers light against her skin. He checks her neck, looking for injuries. He looks into her eyes with a small flashlight, watching her pupils contract. He asks questions in English that she cannot answer, but she understands he is asking where it hurts. She points to her lower back with a shaking hand, tries to say the words in English, but they will not come. So she says them in Japanese. My back, my legs, I cannot feel them. He does not understand the words, but he understands the gesture. His face becomes more serious. He exchanges a look with the older medic. A whole conversation passes between them in that glance. This is bad. This is very bad. The young medic begins to examine her spine. Even the gentlest pressure makes Yuki cry out. The pain is electric, shocking, unbearable. He pulls his hand back, immediately says something that sounds apologetic. The older medic joins him, and they confer in low voices using medical terms that mean nothing to the watching women. Then the young medic does something that stops Yuki's heart. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a small bottle. Clear glass, clear liquid inside, and a syringe. A needle. The women gasp. Several step back. Naomi Sato, the youngest at 19, whispers in Japanese. Poison. They are going to poison her. But Sachiko recognizes what she is seeing. Her eyes widen. No, that is morphine. Pain medicine. Strong pain medicine. The medic shows the syringe to Yuki. He makes an injection gesture, pointing at her arm. Then he makes a sleeping gesture, his head tilting, his eyes closing briefly. He is trying to communicate. This will help with the pain. This will make you feel better. Yuki looks at the needle, at the clear liquid, at the medic's face. She looks at Reiko, who kneels beside her, one hand on her shoulder. Reiko's eyes are full of tears, but she nods. What choice do we have? Yuki extends her arm. She expects death. She expects the liquid to burn through her veins like fire. She expects to die here on this Texas road in enemy hands, just like the propaganda said she would. The medic swabs her arm with something cool and sharp-smelling. Alcohol. Then he inserts the needle with a practiced hand. The stick is brief, sharp, but not terrible. He depresses the plunger slowly, watching her face. The liquid enters her bloodstream. Yuki waits to die. But death does not come. Instead, within 2 minutes, something else happens. The pain begins to fade. Not completely. Not all at once. But the sharp electric agony that has been tearing through her spine begins to dull, to soften, to become something bearable. Her face relaxes. The tension in her jaw releases. Her breathing, which had been coming in short, sharp gasps, begins to slow, to deepen. The morphine is working. It is actually working. The medic stays beside her the entire time. He keeps checking her pulse, watching her eyes, monitoring her response. One hand rests on her shoulder, a light, reassuring pressure. You are safe now. We are taking care of you. The words are in English, but Yuki hears them anyway, feels them, understands them in a way that transcends language. Reiko is crying now, not from grief, but from confusion, from the complete shattering of everything she thought she knew. Why is he being kind? Why is he helping? We are the enemy. We are Japanese. Why would he save her? No one has an answer. They have only the evidence of their own eyes. Morphine instead of poison. Careful hands instead of cruelty. A smile instead of hatred. If this was a lie, what else was a lie? What you are about to witness is one of the most extraordinary transformations in World War II history. A story the history books missed. Before we continue, if you or your family served during this era, I want to hear from you. What was your experience with enemy prisoners? First in the comments below. Over the next hour, you will discover how a Texas medic with every reason to hate chose mercy instead. Why a single breakfast changed an entire prison camp. And how two enemies became friends for 50 years. But first, you need to understand how Yuki ended up on that Texas road. What happened on the cliffs of Saipan that made death seem like the honorable choice? The answer is more horrifying than you imagine. The Protocol of Mercy. Part 2, another vehicle arrives, larger this time. A truck with a canvas cover and a red cross painted on both sides in white paint so bright it seems to glow in the Texas sun. An ambulance. Two more medics emerge from the back carrying a stretcher between them. The young medic, the one who smiled, the one who gave Yuki morphine instead of poison, begins explaining something to the newcomers. He makes careful gestures about her spine, about being careful about not causing more damage. The older medic joins in. They are planning how to move her safely, and Yuki, floating now on a cloud of morphine and shock and disbelief, watches them work. These are American soldiers. These are the men who killed her countrymen. These are the enemy, and they are treating her with more care, more gentleness, more humanity than her own military showed her in the last month of war. The stretcher is positioned beside her on the ground. A backboard appears, a flat wooden board to keep her spine immobilized. The young medic positions himself at her head, the older medic at her torso, the two newcomers at her hips and legs. The young medic says something. A count. 1, 2, 3. On 3, they move in perfect synchronization. They roll her carefully onto her side, supporting her head, keeping her spine straight. They slide the board underneath her. They lower her onto it with exquisite care. Even with the morphine, Yuki whimpers when they move her. The pain breaks through the medication like lightning through clouds. The medic at her head, the young one with the kind smile, says something in that gentle tone. I know it hurts. We are almost done, just hold on. She does not understand the words, but she understands everything. They secure her to the board with straps. Not tight enough to hurt, just tight enough to keep her immobilized, to keep her safe. Then they lift the board under the stretcher. 4 men moving as one unit, trained, coordinated professionals. They carry her to the ambulance with incredible care. Every step is measured. Every movement is controlled. They slide the stretcher into the back of the ambulance and lock it into place on metal rails. It will not slide.
So much.
It will not tip.
I know.
She is secured.
Don't leave
The young
me.
medic climbs
Never.
into the ambulance beside her. He is not leaving her. He is staying close, still monitoring, still watching. Before they close the doors, he looks out at the group of women standing in the road. He points at them, then at himself, then makes a gesture of following. Come with us. You are coming too. The red-haired soldier who originally escorted them speaks to another soldier who arrived with the ambulance. There is a brief discussion. Then the soldier waves at the women and gestures to a regular transport truck that is pulled up behind the ambulance. Sachiko makes a decision. She walks toward the truck, climbs in. One by one, the others follow. They sit on wooden benches that line the sides of the truck bed, hold on to the canvas sides as the engine starts. The convoy begins to move. Ambulance in front with Yuki inside. Transport truck behind with her friends. A jeep with soldiers following to provide escort. Through the open back of the truck, the women can see the ambulance ahead. They can see the red cross on the rear door. They can see the dust rising from the tires. Reiko wipes tears from her face with the back of her hand. They are helping her. They are actually helping her. Naomi, the youngest, speaks in a voice that trembles. But we were told. They said Americans would kill us, that they were demons. No one answers. There is no answer. Only the evidence of their own eyes. Only the morphine instead of poison. Only the careful hands and the kind smile and the ambulance carrying their friend to safety instead of leaving her to die in the road. If this was a lie, what else was a lie? Inside the ambulance, the young medic watches Yuki's face. His name is Daniel Crawford, though she does not know this yet. Danny to his friends. 24 years old, dark hair that will not stay in regulation even when he cuts its short gray eyes that his mother says can see right through to a person's soul. Right now, those eyes are troubled. He should not care this much. She is the enemy. Japanese. The people who killed his brother Bobby at Midway 2 years ago. The people he enlisted to fight to make pay for what they took from his family. But looking at her face, at the bruises that model her skin in shades of purple and yellow, at the fear in her eyes that is slowly being replaced by confusion, he does not see the enemy. He sees a patient, a woman in pain who needed help. And he is a medic. Helping is what he does. The memory comes unbidden. June 1942. The Crawford Ranch outside Abilene, Texas. Danny and Bobby working cattle in the summer heat, moving a herd from the south pasture to fresh grazing land near the creek. Bobby sitting tall in his saddle hat, pushed back, grinning that grin that made everyone who met him smile. I am enlisting tomorrow. Navy. Gonna show those Japs what America is made of. Danny younger by 2 years, still lanky and growing into his frame. Wait for me. We will go together. Bobby shaking his head. Nah, little brother. Someone has got to help Pop with the ranch. Besides, war will be over before you are old enough to get in on the action, Russian. 2 months later, the telegram arrived. Western Union, the yellow envelope that every family in America dreaded. Their mother Martha's scream when she opened it is a sound Danny will hear for the rest of his life. Robert Crawford Seaman, First Class United States Navy, killed in action, Battle of Midway. Their father Frank did not speak for 3 days, just sat on the porch staring out at the land Bobby would never see again, the cattle Bobby would never work, the life Bobby would never live. Danny enlisted the day he turned 18, requested combat infantry, wanted to kill Japanese soldiers, as many as he could, until the rage in his chest finally burned itself out. But the Army had other plans. Medical aptitude tests came back high. They sent him to Fort Sam Houston for medical training instead. He hated it at first. Hated learning to save lives when what he wanted was to take them. Hated the instructors who talked about the Hippocratic Oath about serving all wounded regardless of uniform. Hated most of all the quiet voice in law that said maybe this was the right place for him after all. A medic serves the wounded, his instructor had said, a grizzled veteran of the First World War with scars on his hands and sadness in his eyes. Not the flag they wear. You save them all, or you save none. That is the oath. That is the burden. Can you carry it? Danny had not known then. He is still not sure now, but looking at this Japanese woman, this enemy who was beaten by her own people for choosing to live, he thinks maybe he is starting to understand. The ambulance pulls through gates into a larger compound. Field Hospital 31st Medical Battalion. Guards wave them through without stopping. Inside, organized chaos reigns. Wounded American soldiers are being carried on stretchers from other ambulances to large white tents marked with enormous red crosses. Doctors in white coats move between buildings at a near run. Nurses with red crosses on their caps call out orders. The sounds of medical work fill the air. Urgent voices, the clank of metal instruments, the rumble of generators providing electricity, and in the center of it all, the American flag flies from a tall pole, red, white, and blue against the cloudless sky, snapping in the hot wind. The ambulance carrying Yuki pulls up to a large tent marked with a red cross 10 feet tall. Medical personnel rush out to meet it. The young medic Danny emerges and begins speaking rapidly to the waiting team. His hands move as he talks, gesturing at the ambulance at his lower back, at the urgency of the situation. The transport truck stops nearby. A soldier gestures for the women to dismount. They climb down carefully, legs stiff from sitting, eyes wide as they take in their surroundings. Activity swirls around them, but no one pays them attention. Everyone is too busy with the steady stream of casualties from battles being fought somewhere far from here. A woman approaches, an American woman in a military uniform. The Japanese women tense, not knowing what to expect from a female authority figure in this strange place. She is perhaps 30 years old, with brown hair pulled back in a tight bun under her nurse's cap. Her white uniform is crisp despite the heat, though bloodstains darken both sleeves from elbow to wrist. Her face shows the exhaustion of someone who has not slept properly in days. But her eyes are kind, deeply, genuinely kind. She speaks to them in English. When it becomes clear they do not understand, she switches to gestures, points at them, points at a smaller tent nearby, makes a sitting motion with her hands. Wait here. You will wait here. Sachiko nods, understands both slightly without thinking. The nurse smiles and leads them to the tent. Inside, the temperature drops by at least 10 degrees. The canvas provides shade, and the relief is immediate, physical, almost painful after hours in the direct sun. Wooden benches line the walls. Several cots are folded in one corner. It is sparse but clean, safe. The women sit, their legs shake from exhaustion and fear, and the complete disorientation of nothing being what they expected. The nurse returns 5 minutes later, carrying metal canteens. She hands one to each woman, makes a drinking gesture. Water. Clean water. Reiko takes the first sip and her eyes widen. The water is cold. Actually cold. Impure. No brackish taste of seawater. No chemical tang of purification tablets. Just clean, clear, cold water. She drinks deeply. The others follow. Some cry as they drink. The simple act of cold water on parched tongues is almost too much to bear. The nurse watches them with a sad smile. She says something in English. The tone is apologetic, sympathetic. "I'm sorry you were so thirsty. I'm sorry it came to this." Then she leaves and returns with a wooden crate. She sets it on the ground and begins unpacking. The women lean forward, not believing what they are seeing. Cans. Dozens of cans and packages and boxes. The nurse opens them methodically to show the contents are safe. Canned meat. The metal lid peels back to reveal pink flesh packed in gelatin. Spam, though the women do not know this word. Crackers in wax paper packages. Chocolate bars wrapped in brown paper and foil. Canned peaches swimming in sweet syrup. Canned corn. Canned beans. More food than these women have seen together in months. She arranges everything on top of the crate. Steps back. Gestures. Eat. Please eat. No one moves. This cannot be real. This must be a test, a trap, a cruelty. But the nurse's face shows only compassion. She picks up a cracker, breaks it in half, eats a piece herself to show it is safe. Then she offers the other half to Reiko. Reiko takes it with shaking hands, brings it to her mouth, bites. The cracker breaks with a dry snap between her teeth. The texture is crisp, crumbly, dissolving almost immediately on her tongue. The taste hits next: wheat, salt, butter. Simple flavors, but after months of near starvation, they explode across her palate like fireworks. She chews slowly, swallows. Her eyes fill with tears. It is real food, actual food, not moldy, not mixed with sawdust or dirt or desperation. Real. The dam breaks. The other women reach for food, careful at first, tentative, then more eagerly as their bodies remember what hunger means and what food can do about it. Naomi opens a chocolate bar. The foil crinkles as she unwraps it. The chocolate has melted slightly in the heat, soft and dark. She breaks off a piece, puts it in her mouth. The richness, the sweetness, the fat coating her tongue and throat. She makes a sound that is half sob, half moan. Another woman, Shizue, opens the can of peaches. The syrup inside catches the light, thick and golden. She lifts a peach half with her fingers, not caring about propriety or manners or anything except the need to eat. The fruit is soft, tender, sweeter than anything she has tasted in years. Juice runs down her chin and she does not care. They eat and cry simultaneously. The taste of real food after so long. The feeling of stomachs beginning to fill after months of emptiness. It is overwhelming. It is too much. It is everything. The nurse watches them for a moment longer, her expression heavy with something that might be guilt or sorrow, or simply the weight of witnessing suffering. She says something else in English, her voice gentle. Then she leaves them to eat, returning to her duties with the wounded soldiers who need her more. Sachiko eats a cracker, slowly making it last. She looks around at her companions, at women who are eating and weeping, at the abundance of food still in the crate, at the tent that provides shade and safety. She speaks quietly in Japanese. If they wanted us dead, they would not feed us. Reiko nods, unable to speak around the chocolate melting on her tongue. Naomi wipes tears from her face with the back of her hand, leaving a smear of peach syrup across her cheek. Through the open tent flap, they can see the large medical tent where Yuki was taken. They can see shadows moving inside, hear the urgent voices of doctors and nurses at work, the organized chaos of emergency medicine being practiced at the highest level available in 1944. Reiko swallows her chocolate and asks the question they are all thinking. Will she survive? No one knows. But for the first time since the hospital ship went down, they have something they had lost: hope. Meanwhile, inside the surgical tent, Yuki lies unconscious on an operating table. The morphine has been supplemented with ether, and she floats in darkness, unaware of the men working over her broken spine. Danny stands in the observation area, watching through a gap in the canvas. He cannot assist with this surgery. He lacks the training. But he cannot leave either. Something about this patient has gotten under his skin. Maybe it is the X-ray he saw 20 minutes ago. The image that changed everything. Major George Reynolds, the lead surgeon, is a man of 50 with steady hands and 30 years of medical experience. He has operated in field hospitals from France to the Pacific. He has seen every kind of injury war can inflict on the human body. And he is very, very good at his job. He studies the X-ray film held against a light box. The bones of Yuki's lower spine glow white against the dark background. Danny can see the compression fracture at L4, and L5 can see where the vertebrae have been pushed together, pinching the spinal cord. Can see the reason for her paralysis. But Reynolds is pointing at something else. Other fractures. Older ones. Partially healed, but visible to an experienced eye. A pattern of damage that did not happen all at once. See these? Reynolds taps the film with his finger. These are not from a fall. These are not from the ship sinking or any kind of accident. Danny leans closer. What are they from a blunt force trauma? Reynolds' voice is flat professional, but Danny can hear the anger underneath. Multiple impacts, over time. This woman has been beaten. Repeatedly. By who? Though Danny already knows the answer, Reynolds looks at him. By her own people, Corporal. Before she ever got to us. These fractures are weeks old, partially healed. And this new one, the one that put her on the ground, that may have been caused by the older injuries weakening the spine. Maybe from being thrown around during transport. But the foundation of damage was done before we ever saw her. Danny feels something shift in his chest. Something cold and hard and angry. His brother Bobby died at Midway, killed by Japanese torpedoes. Danny has spent 3 years hating every Japanese person he could imagine, dreaming of revenge, of making them pay for what they took from him. And now he is looking at a Japanese woman who was beaten by her own military for the crime of surviving, for choosing life over death, for surrendering instead of killing herself to avoid the shame of capture. She is a victim, not of Americans, of her own side. The categories Danny has been using, the simple divisions of us and them, enemy and ally, good and evil. They are breaking down, shattering, revealing complexity underneath that he does not want to see but cannot unsee. Reynolds begins his surgery. He works with painstaking care, exposing the damaged vertebrae, relieving the pressure on the spinal cord, installing temporary stabilization using wire and bone grafts harvested from Yuki's own hip. The operation takes 3 hours. Danny watches it all. He does not know why. He should return to his other duties. There are other patients, other needs, but he stands there and watches a surgeon he barely knows save the life of a Japanese woman Danny has no reason to care about. Except he does care. And that realization terrifies him more than any combat he ever saw. The surgery is successful, technically speaking. Reynolds closes the incision with neat stitches, wraps the area with clean bandages. The anesthesia is reduced, and Yuki begins a slow climb back to consciousness. But success in surgery does not always mean success in outcome. The spinal cord is mysterious, unpredictable. Sometimes relieving pressure restores function immediately. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes it never happens at all. They will not know if Yuki will walk again until she wakes up and tries. Danny is assigned as her primary care medic. It is his job to monitor her recovery, manage her pain, assist with whatever physical therapy might be attempted. Colonel Prescott makes the assignment without knowing the significance, without understanding that he has just made Danny responsible for the well-being of a woman who represents everything Danny thought he hated. Yuki is moved to a recovery tent, a quieter space away from the urgent cases. She lies on a real bed with clean white sheets and a pillow that cradles her head. An IV drip feeds fluids and antibiotics into her arm. Bandages wrap her lower back. She is still unconscious, but her vital signs are stable. Danny checks on her every hour through that first night, takes her pulse, monitors her temperature, watches for signs of infection or complication. He does not sleep. Sometime around 3 in the morning, when the camp is quiet and the Texas heat has finally broken into something bearable, Danny sits in a folding chair beside Yuki's bed. He watches her breathe, in and out, steady and alive. He thinks about Bobby, about the telegram that arrived at the ranch in June of 1942, about his mother's scream when she opened it, about his father's silence that lasted 3 days. He thinks about the rage that drove him to enlist, the need for revenge that consumed him for months, the disappointment when he was assigned to medical corps instead of infantry, the frustration of saving lives when what he wanted was to take them. He thinks about the x-rays, about the fractures that Japanese officers inflicted on this woman for the crime of wanting to live. And he thinks about the morphine syringe in his hand this afternoon, about the choice he made in that moment, the choice to ease pain instead of cause it, to save instead of destroy. It was not a conscious decision. It was training, instinct, the Hippocratic oath drilled into him during medical courses. First, do no harm. But it was also something else, something more human. The simple, fundamental recognition that the woman on the ground was suffering and he had the power to help. Enemy or not, Japanese or not, responsible for Bobby's death or not. She was a person in pain and he was a medic. And the rest in that moment did not matter. Danny does not know what this means for his hatred, for his rage, for the revenge he has carried like a stone in his chest for 3 years. He does not have answers. All he has is a Japanese woman breathing steadily in a hospital bed, alive because he chose to save her. Saved from her own people more than from his. The categories are broken. The world is more complicated than he thought, and Danny does not know how to feel about any of it. Dawn comes slowly to Texas, turning the sky from black to gray to pink to blue. Danny finally leaves Yuki's bedside when the day shift nurse arrives. He walks to his barracks and falls onto his cot without removing his boots. He sleeps for 3 hours and dreams of Bobby. But in the dream, Bobby is not dead. He is sitting across a table in a mess hall, eating scrambled eggs and bacon. He looks at Danny and says, "So you saved her, the Jap nurse. You saved her life." Danny tries to explain, tries to justify. "I am a medic. It is my job. It is what I do." Bobby nods, takes another bite of eggs, chews, swallows. "I know. That is what makes you different than them. That is what makes you better." Danny wakes with tears on his face. When he returns to check on Yuki that afternoon, she is awake. Her eyes are open, staring at the canvas tent ceiling. Her face is pale and drawn with pain, despite the morphine still dripping into her veins. She does not move her head when Danny enters, does not turn to look at him. But he can see the tension in her body, the fear. He approaches slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. He makes no sudden movements, keeps his hands visible, lets her see that he carries no weapons, no threats, only his medical bag. He says her name the way Sachiko taught him when she came to translate. Yuki. Her eyes shift, find him, lock onto his face. Recognition flickers. This is the medic from the road, the one who smiled, the one who gave her morphine instead of poison. He makes a gesture like drinking. "Water, would you like water?" She nods fractionally. Even that small movement causes her pain. He can see it in the way her jaw clenches. He pours water from a pitcher into a metal cup, slides a hand under her head to help her lift it enough to drink. The intimacy of the gesture, of supporting her head, of pressing the cup to her lips, it feels enormous. Important. A medic helping a patient, an American helping a Japanese woman, a human helping another human. She drinks in small sips. The water spills slightly from the corner of her mouth and runs down her chin. He wipes it away with a clean cloth without thinking. An automatic gesture of care. When she has drunk enough, he lowers her head back to the pillow. She is watching him with an expression he cannot read. Confusion, gratitude, fear, all of it mixed together. He needs to check if she has feeling in her legs, if the surgery worked, if she will ever walk again. This is the moment of truth, the question that will determine her future. He points at her feet under the blanket, makes a wiggling gesture with his own toes. "Can you feel them? Can you move them?" She understands the question, if not the words. Her face becomes even more tense. She closes her eyes, concentrates. Danny watches her feet under the thin blanket, watches for any movement at all. Nothing. He waits, gives her time, gives her hope, even though his own is fading. Still nothing. Yuki's eyes open. She looks at him, and he sees the truth in her expression before she speaks, sees the crushing weight of disappointment and fear. She shakes her head slightly, whispers something in Japanese that he does not need translated. "I cannot feel them. My legs are still gone." The Protocol of Mercy, Part 3. Danny's heart sinks, but he is not ready to give up, not yet. It has only been 1 day since surgery. The swelling needs time to reduce. The trauma needs time to heal. Function can return gradually over days or weeks. He has seen it before, though rarely. The spinal cord is a mystery even to the best surgeons. Sometimes it heals. Sometimes it does not. He needs to tell her this, needs to give her hope. But he does not speak Japanese and she does not speak English, and the gulf between them is more than just language. So he does the only thing he can think of. He takes her hand, her right hand lying limp on the white sheet. He picks it up gently and holds it between both of his. He looks into her eyes with all the conviction he can muster and says one word slowly, clearly. Wait. Then more words spoken with the kind of intensity that needs no translation. Just wait. Give it time. Do not give up yet. She does not understand the words, but she understands the tone, understands the gesture of him holding her hand, understands that he is not abandoning her, that he will stay, that he will help. A single tear rolls down her cheek. She does not pull her hand away. Danny sits with her for another 10 minutes before his duties call him elsewhere. But before he leaves, he makes a decision. He will get Sachiko to translate. He will explain to Yuki what happened in surgery. He will tell her about the x-rays and what they revealed. He will give her the truth, even if the truth is hard. Because she deserves to know, deserves to understand that the injury that put her on the ground was built on a foundation of cruelty inflicted by her own people. That the Americans did not cause this, that the real enemy, in her case, wore a Japanese uniform. Maybe that knowledge will help. Maybe it will make the recovery easier. Maybe it will give her something to fight for instead of just something to fear. Or maybe it will break something inside her that cannot be repaired. Danny does not know. He only knows that truth matters. That lies are what got them all into this war in the first place. And that if there is going to be any hope of healing, any chance of peace, it has to start with honesty. Even when honesty hurts. Morning rounds bring Captain Thomas Harris to the medical tents. He is 38 years old, career military, with a face like weathered leather, and eyes that see only in black and white. Enemy and ally, right and wrong, no gray areas, no nuance. He lost his entire platoon at Guadalcanal. Watched them die over 3 days in the jungle, picked off one by Japanese snipers. Some of the things he saw, the things the enemy did to captured Americans, he cannot speak about even now. The nightmares still wake him most nights. He believes in hard treatment for hard enemies. Believes that mercy is weakness. Believes that the only good Japanese soldier is a dead one. So when he walks through the recovery tent and sees Corporal Daniel Crawford changing bandages on a Japanese prisoner with the kind of care usually reserved for American wounded, something cold and hard settles in his gut. Harris watches for a full minute. Watches Danny check the incision site with gentle fingers. Watches him speak to the unconscious woman in a low, soothing voice, even though she cannot hear him. Watches him adjust her pillow, straighten her blanket, check her IV line with the focused attention of someone who cares deeply about the outcome. Harris's jaw tightens. He waits until Danny exits the tent, then follows him outside. Corporal Crawford, a word. Danny turns, comes to attention. Sir. Harris steps close enough that their conversation will not be overheard. His voice is low controlled, but there is steel underneath. That prisoner in there, you are spending considerable time in her care. She requires intensive medical attention, sir. Spinal surgery recovery protocol demands constant monitoring for the first 72 hours. Risk of infection, blood clots, secondary complications.
It hurts so
Harris
much.
cuts him off.
I know.
I am aware
I'm
of the
here.
protocol.
Don't
What I am
leave me.
questioning is
Never.
your investment. Danny's back stiffens slightly. Sir, I do not understand. Do you not? Harris's eyes are cold. How many American boys did you treat yesterday? 3. How many times did you check on the Jap woman? 7. I counted. Danny's hands clench at his sides. Her injuries are more severe, sir. She requires more frequent assessment. She requires a prison cell and minimal care. Harris's voice drops even lower. She is the enemy, corporal. Or have you forgotten that? The words hit like a physical blow. Danny thinks about Bobby, about the telegram, about 3 years of rage and grief that have fueled every day since Midway. Sir, with respect, she is a patient, my patient. Harris steps even closer. Your patient. Listen to yourself. She is not your patient, Crawford. She is a POW, a Jap POW. The only reason she is getting medical care at all is the Geneva Convention, not because she deserves it. He pauses, lets that sink in. I knew men at Guadalcanal. Good men. They died screaming. You know what the Japs did to our medics when they caught them? They cut off their hands first. Then they started on the rest, made it last for days. Danny's face goes white, but he does not back down. I know, sir. I know what they did. Do you? Harris's voice is like gravel. Because from where I stand, you seem to have forgotten. Your brother died at Midway, did he not? The words are a knife between Danny's ribs. Sir, my brother has nothing to do with this. Bobby Crawford, a good man from what I heard, died doing his duty, fighting the Japs. Harris lets the silence stretch. Shame you are dishonoring his memory by playing nursemaid to the enemy. Danny's jaw works, but he keeps his mouth shut. Years of military discipline hold him in check. Harris delivers the final blow. From now on, Captain Hayes will handle the Japanese prisoners' medical care. You are reassigned to American casualties exclusively, effective immediately. Is Sir mid-treatment reassignment could jeopardize patient recovery. The consistency of care is critical for spinal injury cases. Any disruption in the protocol could result in setbacks or complications that might otherwise be avoided. Are you questioning my order, Corporal? The question hangs in the air between them. Danny knows what happens if he says yes, court-martial. Dishonorable discharge. Everything he has worked for gone in an instant. He comes to attention. No, sir. Good. Dismissed. Danny walks away with his hands shaking. Not from fear, from rage, from frustration, from the terrible knowledge that Harris is not entirely wrong. Danny has been spending more time on Yuki's care than the protocols strictly require, has been checking on her more often than necessary, has started to think of her not as a patient, not as an enemy, but as a person he has a responsibility to protect. When did that happen? When did the categories shift? He finds Captain Elizabeth Hayes in the supply tent counting bandages and updating inventory. She looks up when he enters, sees his face, sets down her clipboard. What happened? Danny explains. The order, the reassignment, the timing. Hayes is quiet for a long moment. Then she stands, crosses to the tent, opening, looks out at the compound. Captain Harris is a hard man with hard reasons. He lost his entire platoon at Guadalcanal. Watch them die over 3 days. Some of the things the Japanese did, the torture, the mutilation, I cannot even speak them aloud without feeling sick. Danny nods. I understand why he thinks the way he does. Hayes turns back to him. But he is wrong about this. Ma'am, medical care is not political, Crawford. It is not about swedes or flags or who killed whom. It is about the oath we took. She crosses her arms. I have been a nurse for 12 years. Worked in charity hospitals in Baltimore before the war. Treated everyone. Black, white, rich, poor citizen, immigrant. Did not matter. Pain is pain. Suffering is suffering. She looks directly at Danny, and the oath does not say first do no harm unless they are Japanese. It says first do no harm, period. But Captain Harris outranks you. Hayes smiles and there is steel in it. He outranks me in infantry command. But this is a medical facility. And in medical matters, the chief medical officer has final say. That is Major Reynolds, and Reynolds agrees with me. Danny feels something loosen in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying you continue caring for your patient. Just be discreet about it. Check on her when Harris is not around. And for God's sake, do not give him ammunition by being overly familiar. She pauses. Also, Crawford, that woman did not ask to be beaten by her own officers. She did not ask to be paralyzed. She is not responsible for your brother's death. Remember that. The words stay with Danny as he returns to his duties. All through the afternoon as he treats American soldiers with minor wounds, he thinks about what Hayes said, about the oath, about pain being pain regardless of the uniform, about Yuki not being responsible for Bobby's death. It should be simple, but nothing about this feels simple anymore. Day 10 post-surgery brings a new crisis. Danny checks Yuki's temperature during morning rounds, and the thermometer reads 102.3 degrees. Should be near normal by now. His stomach drops. He removes the bandages, carefully examines the incision site. The area is red warm to touch. Slight swelling around the stitches. No seepage yet, but the signs are clear. Infection. Doc William Miller confirms it. The older medic examines the wound, his face grave behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Early stage, but it will get worse without intervention. We need penicillin. How much do we have? Miller's expression says everything. We are running low. Expected shipment was delayed due to storms in the Gulf. Current stock has to be rationed. Danny understands immediately. How low? There is an American soldier in Tent 4, gangrene from a shrapnel wound. He needs a full course or he loses the leg. Maybe more. Miller meets Danny's eyes. If we use penicillin on your patient, we might not have enough for him. The choice sits between them like a stone. Save an American soldier or a Japanese prisoner. Harris's words echo in Danny's head. She is the enemy. Your brother died fighting these people. But he also hears Hayes. Pain is pain. The oath says first do no harm. Period. Danny does the math. Calculates doses, considers half measures, weighs risks. There is a way, barely. We split it. The soldier gets standard course. She gets reduced dosage. Riskier, but possible if we monitor closely. Miller studies him. You are sure about this? Harris finds out there will be hell to pay. Harris does not need to find out. Danny's voice is steady. She is my patient. I took an oath. The penicillin injections begin. Every 6 hours, Danny administers the first dose himself. Yuki flinches when the needle goes in, not from pain, but from instinctive fear, still expecting poison despite everything. He shows her the vial points to the label. Medicine. Help. The words are meaningless to her, but his face is not. Trust is building slowly, layer by layer, like sediment deposited over time. The first night, Yuki's fever climbs. 102.5. 103.1. By midnight, she is delirious, speaking rapid Japanese that Danny cannot understand. She thrashes slightly despite the restraints, calling out for someone named Okasan. Mother, he will learn later. He stays at her bedside through the night, cold compress on her forehead, monitoring constantly. At 3 in the morning, Captain Hayes appears. Get some sleep. I will watch her. Danny shakes his head. I started this. I will see it through. Hayes sits in the other chair. You care about her, more than just patient and doctor. It is not a question. Danny does not answer because he does not know how. The second night is worse. Fever peaks at 103.8. Yuki's delirious words become clearer to Danny through repetition. He hears Gomen Nasai over and over. I am sorry. Hears what sounds like, I chose wrong, should have died. He holds her hand, speaks even though she cannot understand. No, you chose right. You chose life. At 2 in the morning, he considers waking Reynolds for emergency intervention. But just as he stands to go, something changes. Yuki's breathing eases slightly. The fever drops 0.2 of a degree. By dawn, it is down to 101.5. The penicillin is working. The crisis is passing. Day 12 morning. Yuki's eyes clear and focus on Danny. Fever broken completely back to 99.2. She is weak but lucid. She whispers something in broken English. Her first English words. Thank you. The sound of it, the effort behind those 2 syllables nearly breaks Danny. She is learning English, trying to build a bridge across the language barrier, trying to communicate with the enemy who saved her life. He squeezes her hand gently. You are learning English. Good. That is good. Day 15 brings the moment they have both been waiting for and dreading. Danny arrives with Captain Hayes for the daily physical therapy attempt. 2 weeks since surgery. Time to try again. They pull back the blanket, Yuki's feet exposed pale and still. Danny positions himself at the foot of the bed, makes the gesture they have practiced before. Wiggling toes. Try. Just try. Concentrate. Yuki closes her eyes, every ounce of will focused on her right big toe. The signal should be simple. Brain to spine, to nerves, to muscle. Move. Nothing. She tries again. Harder. Imagines the toe lifting, wiggling, doing anything at all. Still nothing. 30 seconds pass. Danny's hope starts to fade. Maybe the damage is permanent. Maybe they saved her life, but could not save her legs. Maybe she will spend the rest of her days in a wheelchair dependent on others, half the person she was before. Then it happens. So small he almost misses it. The right big toe moves. Just barely. Just a fraction of an inch. A tiny twitch that could almost be imagination. But Danny sees it. His face lights up like someone lit a fire behind his eyes. He shouts loud enough to startle Yuki. Yes, good, that is good. He grabs Hayes' arm, points at the foot. Did you see that? Did you see it move? Hayes is smiling too. That kind of smile Yuki remembers from the first day. I saw it. Definite movement. Yuki, that is wonderful. Even though Yuki does not understand all the words, she understands the tone. Understands the joy in their faces. She opens her eyes, looks down at her foot. Did it really move, or did she imagine it? Danny points excitedly. Again. Try again. She concentrates. This time the movement is more pronounced. The toe definitely lifts, just a little, just enough. Doc Miller comes at a run, glasses bouncing on his nose. Danny shows him, asks Yuki to try once more. She does. The toe moves. Miller laughs, a deep, booming sound of relief and satisfaction. He says something and Hayes translates through gestures for Yuki. This is very good. The nerves are working. Feeling is returning. This is the beginning. Yuki starts to cry. Not from sadness this time. From hope. Real, tangible, justified hope. Her toe moved. The nerve signals are getting through. Maybe, just maybe, she will walk again. Danny stays beside her bed for the next hour, coaxing more movement. The left toe responds eventually. Then she can flex her ankle slightly. Each tiny victory is celebrated like a major triumph. Each millimeter of progress is proof that the human body can heal. That miracles, small ones, at least still happen. By the end of the session, Yuki is exhausted. Her back aches despite the reduced morphine dose. Her head throbs from concentration. But she is smiling. Actually smiling, for the first time since the hospital ship went down. Danny smiles back, and in that moment, something passes between them. Something beyond medic and patient, beyond American and Japanese, beyond enemy and ally. Recognition, connection, the beginning of something neither of them has words for. Over the next week, progress comes in inches. Yuki can feel both feet completely by day 17. Ankles respond to commands by day 19. Calves have sensation returning by day 21. The pain comes with the feeling, pins and needles that make her gasp. But pain means nerves are working. Pain means life. Danny visits 4 times a day for physical therapy. They develop a routine, a rhythm. He helps her bend her knees, lift her legs, strengthen muscles that have atrophied from disuse. Captain Hayes assists, providing steady hands and encouraging words. And somewhere in those sessions, in the careful touch of hands on skin, in the shared focus on healing, Danny and Yuki become something more than strangers. They cannot speak each other's language beyond a few basic words, but they communicate anyway, through gestures, through tone, through the universal language of determination and care. Danny teaches her English during the therapy sessions, points at objects and says the words clearly: bed, pillow, water, pain, better, walk. Yuki repeats them, her accent thick but her effort genuine. She teaches him Japanese in return. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you very much. Ganbatte. Do your best. Tomodachi. Friend. Danny stumbles over the unfamiliar sounds and Yuki laughs. The sound surprises her. She had forgotten what laughter felt like. He grins at her pronunciation of his name. Jamsu. Close enough. Week 8 arrives with a care package from home. Mail call brings a package wrapped in brown paper and string, addressed in his mother's careful handwriting. Martha Crawford Crupford Danch, Abilene, Texas. Danny opens it in his barracks. The smell hits him immediately. Texas. Smoke and mesquite in his mother's kitchen. Homesickness rises in his throat like bile. Inside, he finds dried beef jerky, dark and fragrant with smoke. Preserved peaches in mason jars that catch the light like amber. Pecans from the trees that grow along the property line. And a letter. The letter is what matters most. Dearest Danny, his mother writes in her flowing script, your father and I received your last letter about the Japanese nurse you are caring for. I want you to know we are proud of you, son. You took an oath and you are honoring it. That is the Crawford way. Danny's eyes blur. He reads on. I am sending you some of our jerky and peaches. Your father says save it for yourself, but I know you, Danny. You will share it with whoever needs it most. That is also the Crawford way. Come home safe. Love, Mama. He sits on his cot holding the letter for a long time. His mother understands. Even if his father has doubts, even if the neighbors talk, his mother understands. That afternoon, he takes the jerky to Yuki. She has been struggling with hospital food. Too heavy, too greasy after months of starvation. American cooking is unfamiliar. She is losing weight again, despite the abundance of calories available. He unwraps the jerky. From my home, Texas. Yuki takes a piece carefully. brings it to her nose, inhales, smoke and beef and pepper. She bites down. The texture is tough, requires real chewing, but the flavor is immediate and strong. Salt, smoke, meat. Simple and honest and satisfying in a way hospital food is not. She chews slowly, swallows, looks at Danny with something like surprise. Good, he grins. That night, Danny cannot sleep. He thinks about his mother's words. Share it with whoever needs it most. He thinks about bacon on Sunday mornings. At the ranch, the whole family gathered around the kitchen table. Bobby stealing extra strips when their mother's back was turned. Their father pretending not to notice. He thinks about showing Yuki what America really is. Not hospital food, not prison rations. Real American home cooking. The kind of food that means home and family and everything worth fighting for. At 4 in the morning, he makes a decision. The protocol of mercy. Part 3 continued. He makes his way to the mess hall kitchen while the camp still sleeps. The door is unlocked. Inside, he finds Samuel Williams already there preparing the early breakfast shift. Samuel is 45 years old, an African-American man from Louisiana with hands that have cooked for 1,000 soldiers and eyes that have seen what prejudice looks like from both sides of the color line. Samuel looks up when Danny enters, studies him for a long moment. Corporal Crawford, you are up early. I need a favor. What kind of favor? Danny hesitates, then decides that honesty is the only currency worth trading. I have a patient, Japanese woman, spinal surgery. She is recovering, but hospital food is making her worse. She needs real food, American food, the kind that reminds you why home matters. Samuel sets down his knife, wipes his hands on his apron. You want me to help you cook for a Japanese prisoner? It is not a question. Danny nods anyway. Samuel is quiet for a moment. Then he crosses to the supply locker, opens. It pulls out a slab of bacon. Not the thin army issue stuff, thick cut. The kind that comes from butcher shops back home, from pigs raised properly, from a world where food still means something beyond fuel. This here is the good stuff, Samuel says. Been saving it. Was gonna make it for the boys who came back from that nasty business in France last week. But I think your patient needs it more. He looks at Danny. You know why I am helping you? Danny shakes his head. Because I know what it is like to be judged for what you are instead of who you are. Every day of my life. And if you are willing to see past uniform and skin color and all the hate this war is built on, then I figure the least I can do is help you cook some bacon. Samuel shows Danny how to heat the cast iron skillet to the exact right temperature. How to lay the strips without overlapping. How to let the fat render slowly, turning the heat down when it starts to spit. How to flip at the perfect moment so the edges crisp up, dark and beautiful, while the center stays chewy. Bacon is honest food, Samuel says. Cannot fake it, cannot rush it. Either you do it right or you ruin it. They cook together in the pre-dawn darkness. Scrambled eggs fluffy with butter, toast golden brown, and bacon. Strip after strip laid out on a plate, each one perfect. Each one a small act of defiance against everything the war says should matter. When they are done, Samuel looks at the plate. That there is Texas on a plate. That there is what we are fighting for. Not the killing, the living, the sharing, the simple fact that human beings can sit down together and break bread. Danny carries the covered tray through the quiet camp as the sun begins to turn the eastern sky from black to gray. He walks carefully, protecting the food like it is something precious. Because it is. He enters Yuki's tent while she is still half asleep. The morphine has been reduced to almost nothing now. She is stronger, can sit up without help, can move her legs with increasing control. But she is not strong yet, not healed yet. Danny sets the tray on the table beside her bed. I brought you something. She blinks awake, confused, sees him, smiles. That has become her first response when she sees him now. A smile, not fear, not suspicion, trust. He lifts the cover. The smell hits first, overwhelming, undeniable, smoke and salt and fat. The bacon glistens in the early morning light filtering through the tent canvas. The eggs steam pale yellow and perfect. The toast gleams with melted butter. Yuki's eyes widen. She has never seen bacon before. Pork is not common in her diet, certainly not during wartime rationing. But the smell is making her mouth water, despite her uncertainty. Danny breaks off a piece of bacon, demonstrates, bites into it with exaggerated pleasure, chews, swallows, makes a satisfied sound. Texas bacon, best in world. Yuki understands Texas and best. She has been learning English faster now, practicing every day. But more than the words, she understands his face, the joy there, the offering, the sharing. She takes a piece carefully between her fingers. It is still warm. The grease coats her skin. She brings it to her mouth, hesitates for just a second, then bites. The crunch is immediate, satisfying. The texture is unlike anything she has ever experienced. Crispy on the edges where the fat has rendered away to nothing but pure caramelized meat, but chewy in the center, still soft enough to give resistance between her teeth. Then the flavor hits. Salt. So much salt. More salt than she has tasted in months. It explodes across her tongue like a detonation. Her taste buds, starved for so long, light up like a city coming back to power after a blackout. Fat. Rich, overwhelming, coating her mouth and throat. Not the thin, watery fat of wartime rations. Real fat. Pork fat rendered down to its essence, carrying flavor in every molecule. Smoke. Subtle but unmistakable. The mesquite wood smoke from Texas. The same smoke that has flavored meat for generations of cowboys and ranchers and people who understand that food is not just fuel, but culture, identity, home. She chews slowly. The bacon breaks down into smaller pieces, but the flavor intensifies rather than fades. Each chew releases more salt, more fat, more smoke. The taste fills her entire head. She can feel it in her sinuses, in the back of her throat, in the roof of her mouth. She swallows, can taste it all the way down, can feel the richness of it settling in her stomach. She looks at Danny. Her expression is pure shock, pure disbelief. She says one word. More, Danny laughs, actually laughs out loud. The sound is pure joy. He pushes the plate toward her. All yours. Yuki eats slowly, savoring each bite. The eggs are fluffy and rich with butter, like eating clouds that taste of cream. The toast is perfect, crispy outside and soft inside, the butter soaking into the bread until it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. But the bacon is revelation. Each piece is slightly different. Some more crispy, some more chewy, all delicious. She eats and cries at the same time. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming sensation of being treated like a human being, of being given not just food but care, not just sustenance but culture, not just calories but connection. When the plate is empty, she sits back against her pillows. Her face shows contentment, satisfaction, something that might even be happiness. She looks at Danny, says in careful English, "Thank you. Thank you very much." He nods, says in his careful Japanese, "Du itashimashite." And in that moment, sitting in a hospital tent in Texas eating bacon, as the sun rises over an internment camp, an American medic and a Japanese prisoner become something they were never supposed to become. Friends, the weeks that follow bring changes faster than either of them expect. Week 9, Yuki can stand without support for 30 seconds. Week 10, she takes her first steps with only a cane. Week 11, she walks the length of the tent and back. Captain Hayes watches the progress with professional satisfaction. Dr. Miller marks it in his charts. Major Reynolds calls it a textbook recovery, the best outcome that they could have hoped for given the severity of the injury. But Danny knows the truth. The recovery is not just physical, it is something else. Something that has to do with being seen, with being valued, with having a reason to heal that goes beyond mere survival. September becomes October. The Texas heat finally breaks. Cool mornings arrive, though the afternoons still push into the 90s. The war continues somewhere far away. News comes through on the radio. American victories in Europe. The steady island by island advance across the Pacific. Everyone knows how this ends now. It is just a matter of time. On October 15th, a war crimes investigation team arrives at Crystal City. 3 lawyers in crisp uniforms, a stenographer with a typewriter, an official translator. They set up in a private tent and begin documenting Japanese military misconduct for potential post-war tribunals. Captain Hayes comes to Danny with a proposal. If Yuki testifies about the beatings, about what the Chinese officers did to her,
Don't leave
it could
me.
delay her
Never.
repatriation. Buy more time for full recovery, maybe 3 months, maybe more. Danny feels a hope flare in his chest. 3 more months. Enough time for her to walk without any assistance. Enough time to be sure the healing is complete. But Hayes holds up a hand. It has to be her choice. We present the option. We explain the risks and benefits. Then she decides. Understood. Danny nods. Understood. They meet with Yuki that afternoon. Sachiko comes to translate. Hayes explains the situation carefully. Testify about the abuse and delay returning to Japan, or decline and be shipped back in 4 weeks. Yuki listens without interruption. When Hayes finishes, there is a long silence. Then Yuki asks a question through Sachiko. Why does he care? Why does this matter to him? Danny knows she is asking about him. He chooses his words carefully. Because it is right. Because you deserve time to heal. Because what they did to you was wrong and someone should say so. He pauses, then adds something he has not said before. My brother died in this war. I cannot bring him back. But maybe I can help make sure others do not die from lies. Sachiko translates. Yuki's eyes fill with tears. She nods slowly. I will do it. I will tell the truth. But then she says something else. Something that makes Sachiko's face change. The older woman translates slowly. But not for more time. Not for myself. I will do it for the women who died believing suicide was honor. For the mothers who killed their children on Saipan cliffs, thinking Americans were monsters. Someone must say we were lied to, and I will be that someone. Danny feels something shift in his understanding. This is not about safety for her. It is about purpose, about giving meaning to her choice to live. The testimony happens over 2 days. Yuki walks to the tent with her cane, Danny beside her, but not supporting her. She sits across from the lawyers and tells her story. She describes the propaganda, the orders to commit suicide, the Saipan Cliff's horror, her choice to surrender, the beatings that followed. Danny waits outside both days. He can hear her voice through the canvas, steady, clear, speaking truth to power, choosing honesty over silence. When she emerges on the second day, she is exhausted, but there is something else in her expression. Relief, like a burden has been lifted. The testimony buys them 3 more months, but it also brings something else. November 5th brings new orders. All Japanese civilians to be repatriated by mid-November, regardless of testimony status. State Department decision. Not negotiable. When Danny tells Yuki, she takes it with surprising calm. How long? 10 days. She nods. Then I will walk without the cane before I go. And she does. November 12th. 6 days before departure, Yuki Tanaka walks across the compound without any support at all. Slow, with a pronounced limp, but walking, under her own power. Danny walks beside her, not touching her, just present, watching her do what the surgeon said might never happen. When they reach the other side, she turns to him, says in English that is almost fluent now, I am ready to go home now. Thank you for making that possible. The final night before departure, Danny gives her a gift, a leather journal purchased from the camp store with money he saved from his pay, small enough to fit in a pocket, sturdy enough that it'll last for years. For writing your story, he says, someday maybe you write it all down. Yuki accepts it with both hands, bows in the Japanese way, even though she knows Americans do not do this. Then she gives him something in return, an origami crane folded from medical chart paper, white and delicate and perfect. In Japan, crane means hope, peace, remember me when you see it. Danny closes his fingers around the crane carefully. I will never forget you. They do not say what they both feel, that this matters more than it should, that somewhere in the last 3 months, 2 enemies became something neither of them has words for in any language. November 15th arrives cold and clear. 15 women board buses that will take them to Los Angeles, to a Swedish ship to Japan, to whatever future awaits them there. Danny stands with the other medical personnel, saying goodbye. Captain Hayes hugs each woman. Doc Miller shakes hands. Even some of the guards who escorted them that first day look sad to see them go. Danny and Yuki stand slightly apart from the others. Everything that matters has already been said, or cannot be said at all. Finally, Yuki speaks. You changed everything for me. How I see the world. How I see what is possible. Danny nods. Cannot trust his voice. She continues. You gave me life twice, once on operating table, once by showing me truth. He finds words. You changed me too. Taught me that hatred is easy, but mercy takes courage. The bus driver calls for boarding. The women begin to climb aboard. Yuki picks up her small bag, turns to Danny, makes a decision. She ignores his offered handshake and hugs him instead. Arms around his waist, head against his chest, holding tight. Danny hugs back, can feel her shaking slightly, realizes he is shaking too. She pulls away, says in clear English, "Goodbye, Danny Crawford. Be the man your brother would be proud of." He watches her walk to the bus. She does not look back. If she does, she might not be able to leave. She climbs the steps. The door closes. The engine starts. The convoy pulls away. Dust rises. Women wave from windows. Danny stands at attention and salutes until the buses disappear. Doc Miller comes to stand beside him. "You okay, son?" Danny lowers his salute, wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. "Yeah, Doc, I think I will be." What Danny does not know, standing there in the Texas dust, is that this goodbye is not an ending. It is barely even a pause. 3 months later, the war in Europe ends. Germany surrenders. 6 months after that, atomic bombs fall on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrenders. The war that took Bobby and millions of others finally stops. Danny returns to the Crawford Ranch in October 1945. His mother meets him at the door with tears streaming down her face. His father shakes his hand, then pulls him into a hug that lasts a full minute. That first night home, Danny sits at the kitchen table where he ate breakfast 1,000 times before the war. His mother makes bacon and eggs. The smell is exactly as he remembers. But it also reminds him of a tent in Texas and a Japanese woman tasting her first bite of American bacon. The next morning, the mail comes. Among the letters and bills, there is one envelope that makes Danny's heart stop. Japanese postmark. Careful English handwriting. He opens it with shaking hands. "Dear Danny," it begins. "I arrived safely in Yokohama. The journey was long, but I thought of bacon and hope the entire time." He reads the whole letter 3 times. Then he sits down and writes a response, tells her about the ranch, about coming home, about his mother's reaction when he told her about the Japanese nurse who taught him what mercy really means. "She wants to meet you someday," he writes. "Says anyone who teaches her son compassion deserves the best Texas barbecue we can make." He mails the letter that afternoon. Does not expect a response quickly. International mail is still unpredictable in the wake of war, but 6 weeks later, another letter arrives, and then another, and another. A correspondence begins that will span 50 years. Two people who were supposed to be enemies writing to each other about their lives, about healing, about building peace in the ruins of war. The years pass. Danny meets a woman named Sarah Thompson at a church social in 1948. She is kind and patient and does not mind that he writes letters to a woman in Japan. They marry that summer. Have twin daughters in 1952. Yuki becomes a translator for the American occupation forces. Uses the English Danny taught her to help rebuild her country. Eventually opens a language school in Yokohama. Teaches thousands of students over 4 decades. They never stop writing. Through the Korean War and Vietnam, through the Cold War and detente, through marriages and children and the slow accumulation of years. The letters are a lifeline, a reminder that connection is possible across any distance, and any difference, any divide. In 1994, Sarah Crawford dies peacefully after a long illness. Danny sits at her funeral surrounded by his daughters and grandchildren, feeling the weight of loss settle into his bones. 3 weeks later, a letter arrives from Japan. Yuki has heard the news. She writes about loss, about time, about the courage it takes to keep living when the people you love are gone. And then at the end of the letter, she asks a question. "I am 73 years old. You are 74. We are not young, but we are alive. For 50 years, I have wanted to see the Texas sunset you described in your letters. May I visit, may I finally come home to the place that saved my life." Danny writes back the same day, one line. "Please come. I have been waiting." May 1995. Yuki Tanaka boards a plane in Tokyo bound for Dallas. It is her first time on an airplane, her first time leaving Japan since the Swedish ship brought her back in 1944. She is terrified, but she is also determined. The flight takes 14 hours. She carries one suitcase. Inside her clothes, the diary from 1944, and every letter Danny Crawford ever sent her. 200 letters across 50 years. She rents a car at the Dallas airport, drives 3 hours through Texas landscape that looks exactly as she imagined it from his descriptions. Mesquite trees, flat horizon, sky so blue it hurts. She pulls up to the Crawford Ranch at 3 in the afternoon. White farmhouse, wraparound porch, American flag on a pole in the front yard. And sitting on the porch swing, a man with white hair and a face she would recognize anywhere. She cannot move for 2 full minutes. Just sits in the car with the engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the man who saved her life 50 years ago. Danny stands, walks to the porch steps, holds up his hand. In his palm, she can see, even from this distance, the origami crane, the one she gave him in 1944. He has kept it for 50 years. Yuki opens the car door. Her legs shake as she stands. The old injury makes her limp more pronounced when she is tired. But she walks toward the porch. Each step crosses decades. Each step brings her closer to the moment that started everything. They stop 5 feet apart. Neither speaks. They just look at each other, seeing the young medic and the young nurse beneath the lines and gray hair, seeing the people they were, the people they became, the connection that never broke. Finally, Yuki speaks. Uses the pronunciation she has used for 50 years. Jamsu, Danny smiles, uses the pronunciation he has practiced in letters. Yuki-san. They both laugh, then cry, then laugh again. Danny steps down from the porch, opens his arms. Yuki steps into them. They hold each other for 30 seconds. No words, just the simple fact of presence. I am here. You are here. We made it. Later, Danny shows her the house. The study where he kept every letter she ever sent, organized by year in a wooden box. The oak tree where he read each one, sitting in the Texas heat, feeling connected to someone on the other side of the world. They watch the sunset together that first evening. The sky turns gold, then orange, then deep red. Yuki says quietly, like bacon. Danny laughs so hard he cries. That night over dinner, Yuki tells him what she has spent 50 years building. The language school, the 10,000 students, the way she used his story to teach them that enemies can become friends. That mercy is stronger than hate. I told them, she says, that America is not buildings or flags. America is a medic who knelt in Texas dust and chose mercy over revenge. That is the America worth learning English for. Danny tells her about his daughters, his grandchildren, how he told them all the story of the Japanese nurse who taught him that compassion takes more courage than hate. 3 days later, as Yuki prepares to return to Japan, Danny gives her one final gift: Bobby's dog tags, the ones that came back from Midway with the telegram. I cannot take these, she protests. You must, Danny insists. Bobby would want you to have them. You taught me what he died for, not hatred, not revenge, but the possibility that former enemies can become friends. That is worth more than any military victory. Yuki takes the tags with shaking hands, presses them to her chest, cries the way she cried in her kitchen in Yokohama when this story started. They say goodbye on the porch. But this time it is not forever. They promise to write, to visit again, to keep the connection alive, and as long as they both shall live. 3 years later, in 1998, Danny Crawford dies peacefully in his sleep. His daughters are with him. On his bedside table, the origami crane. In his pocket, Yuki's last letter. When Yuki receives the news, she sits in her kitchen and opens her diary, turns to the first page. August 15th, 1944. The day I learned that my enemy had more mercy than my own people. She picks up a pen, writes a new entry. May 20th, 1998. The day I said goodbye to the man who taught me that mercy is the strongest protocol of all. Their letters are donated to the World War II Museum in New Orleans. Their story becomes a teaching tool for reconciliation programs. Their grandchildren meet, become friends, eventually marry. In 2023, 60 children gather in Tokyo for the Crawford Tanaka family reunion. American and Japanese, all descendants of a medic and a nurse who chose connection over division. The youngest child, a 4-year-old girl with her great-grandmother Yuki's eyes and her great-grandfather Danny's smile, holds an origami crane made from paper folded by her grandmother's hands. Behind are two flags, American and Japanese, not in opposition, in conversation. This is what Danny and Yuki built, not with grand gestures or treaties or policies, but with small choices made in difficult moments. A smile instead of cruelty, morphine instead of poison, bacon instead of indifference, letters instead of silence. They prove that enemies can become friends, that mercy is stronger than revenge, that one choice made in a moment of suffering on a dusty Texas road can echo across 50 years, across an ocean, across generations. The question is not whether such choices are possible. Danny and Yuki prove they are. The question is whether we will make them, whether we will choose to see the person instead of the enemy, the patient instead of the prisoner, the human being instead of the uniform. That choice is always available, in every moment, in every encounter, in every chance we get to offer mercy instead of judgment. Danny Crawford and Yuki Tanaka chose mercy. What will you choose if this story moved you, if it made you think differently about enemies and friends, about mercy and revenge, about what is possible when we choose to see each other's humanity? Then share it. Share it with your children, your grandchildren, anyone who thinks the divisions between us are too deep to cross, because this story proves otherwise. And it is not fiction, it is history, it is truth. It is what happened when a Texas medic with every reason to hate chose mercy instead, and that choice changed everything. End.